Hi everybody and welcome for the second meeting, second webinar of this this course online. Maybe we start because we have a small introduction before giving voice to Alessia. It's going to teach today. The topic today is the map of the EU funds. So we will see afterwards what will happen with this. And we are here thanks to Chebec project. You know well, because most of you are beneficiary of this EU project. And in connection with the Municipality of Bologna and Incredible project. I'm Rosanna from BAM, Strategie Culturali. You met last time my colleague Federico and Massimo. Massimo is also today here to help you in any case of technical problems. Is hosting the webinar, and today there is also Paolo if you need something, and today we are presenting this webinar in collaboration with InEuropa. That's a company in Emilia-Romagna working with the European project, of course. So we are in the in our second step. Last time we talked about the logic of European funding, presenting two cases, our cases and the case of Melting Pro company, and tracing a summary of the keywords, the main keywords about EU projects. Today we will see which place as culture in EU project, and how to find out a call and how is generated a call. We are also launching officially the dates of the second part of this webinar series. About the second part will be more composed by focus on programs, specific programs, and on specific experiences, cases, and persons who will tell you their experience in EU projects and open to questions to understand in the best way how to approach EU funding. So there will be a first meeting, first webinar about Creative Europe on the 29th September. Then we will see some case studies about cultural and artistic topics on the 1st October. Then we will see in depth the Erasmus Plus program, the 6th October. And again, during that week, there will be some case studies. And then we have other programs webinar, the 13th October. And again, other case studies on the 15th October. So the program in detail will arrive soon. You will receive it through Chebec partner, through Municipality of Bologna, but also through Zoom during the next days. I think in 2 days we will send you the link to the registration form with all details inside it. And we are also planning to have a final roundtable to speak about the next 7 years of EU program, but we don't have the date at this time. So some remarks before starting. The today's schedule is about an intervention divided into 2 parts. The first one is an introduction about the key concepts and of EU funding. And then Alessia will make an overview of opportunities for culture and creative sector. In between, Alessia will propose you a small workshop, just looking for something on the web, but then she will refer you how to do so. And you are free to make questions during all the webinar through the Q&A section. You will find out it on the bottom of your window, and we ask you to ask a question not anonymously, but you can upvote others' questions, so you can see what questions are posing other people. And we will read all the questions, we will collect them, and then we have the last half hour to answer you in some way, if we are able. Otherwise, we will answer you during the next days. And all the video is recorded, so be aware of that. Your video is and voice are disabled at this time, but if you need afterwards to make an intervention, we just enable it, the voice, but also the video in case. And so don't worry about that. We are doing this. And the video will be available in a while after the webinar through YouTube. So if you want to see again the video, or if you have lost the initial part or the conclusions, you will find it forever on YouTube. Okay, so I think we are okay, and I just ask Alessia to start this intervention, and thank you to be in this series of webinar.
Hello everybody. First of all, I thank you for inviting InEuropa to contribute to this very useful series of webinars. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, sorry. Okay. Can you see my screen? I hope you don't see this. Okay. Sorry. Is everything okay? Rosanna, vedete tutti il mio schermo bene? Sì, ok, nice.
Basta che fai clic e si va avanti.
Ok, sì. To start, the objectives of today's webinar are to introduce you to the very complex world of European funding programs by providing you with basic but very useful knowledge and tools to get familiar with what European funding programs are, how they function, and how to apply to European call for proposals. We are going through, as Rosanna said before, we're going to first have a look at the wider context. I'm going to propose you to make a small exercise that we will see later on, and then we're going to explore from closer the various opportunities for culture and creativity across different European programs. I know that some of the European programs that I'm going to mention today will be explained more in details in the next webinars, so we're just going through them more quickly. So yeah, let's go. First of all, I'm going to introduce briefly what is InEuropa, who is InEuropa. We are a company based in Modena, in Italy, providing consultancy on European funded projects, and we are basically active in the fields of, in the social and in the cultural fields, and in education and training. So we support several kinds of organizations who wish to apply to European fundings. We support them in the process of designing the project and also managing the grant in case the project is successful. This graph is in Italian, but it's easy to understand. This is just to give you an idea of some data about InEuropa's work. So in the last 10 years, 13 years, 32 projects were awarded in the field of education and training, 29 in the field of culture, and 25 in social policies. And this is the breakdown per program. So 22 Erasmus Plus projects were funded among those that InEuropa supported, 13 projects under European territorial cooperation, and 11 projects under Creative Europe, and so on. So yeah, this is just to present our activity. Now we're going in the details of the webinar. So we start from exploring the context of EU funds. The first consideration that I want to make, because it's very crucial in this moment, is that European programs are planned 7 years by 7 years. So the European Commission drafts a European budget covering a period of 7 years. We are right now at the very end of the current programming period, which started in 2014. And we are currently waiting for the official final version of the next European budget for the period 2021-2027. So this means in practical terms that many of the programs that we know today do not have any more calls planned, because the resources have been allocated already and the programs are closing. So we have to wait for the new version of the European programs to start, to be launched, and together with them will come the new calls for proposals. So this is important to know, because yeah, it's a transition period that we're living now. Talking about European funded programs, we must make a broad distinction. A distinction between indirect funds and direct funds. The indirect funds are the so-called structural funds, which are implemented to contribute to the cohesion policy. The cohesion policy of the European Union is a policy that promotes a balanced development of European member states, so that there is a harmonious development across different regions and across different states. And it is structured in two objectives. Objective 1, investments for growth and employment, is supported by three funds: European Regional Development Fund, European Social Fund, and Cohesion Fund. And these funds are aimed at, as I said before, at a balanced, smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth across Europe. So Europe has been divided into different regions, less developed regions, regions in transition, and developed regions. And these funds are allocated not directly by the European Commission, but through member states. So the member states have to draft national programs or regional programs according to the specific needs of the national or regional territories in order to allocate the money coming from the funds that I mentioned. And this is why these are indirect funds, because the money, the resources go from the European Union to the member states, and the member states allocate these resources through ministries, through regional authorities, for example. So in this case, the call for proposals are specific for the territory that launch that call for proposals. For example, each Italian region has different call for proposals to allocate the European Regional Development Fund resources. So the interlocutor in that case is not the European Commission, but is the region, the regional authority. Objective 2 is European territorial cooperation, which is also called Interreg, which promotes joint actions, exchanges, and networking among local, regional, national actors, is again funded by the ERDF and other two instruments, which are the Instrument for Pre-Accession and European Neighbourhood Instrument. And this type of cooperation, we will see it later in the webinar. It is divided into three types: cross-border, transnational, and interregional, but we will see it later. So these that I have explained now are the so-called indirect funds, where the funds are allocated by intermediaries, which can be the ministries, the regional authorities, or in the case of European territorial cooperation, the secretariats, the managing authorities of each program. Going back to our distinction, we will concentrate on direct funds. The direct funds can be either targeted programs, like for example, the Creative Europe program is dedicated to the cultural and creative sector, so it is a targeted program. Or for example, the LIFE program is dedicated to environment and climate action, and so on. And then there is Horizon 2020, which it is indeed a direct fund, but it is a framework program in the sense that it covers virtually any sector. Horizon 2020, you probably know, it is a program for research and innovation, and it covers any sector. So in this webinar, the focus will be a little bit more on direct funds. These are the characteristics of direct funds. So as opposed to the indirect funds that I explained before, in this case, the contractual relationship will be direct between the European Commission or its delegated agency and the beneficiary. So if I apply, if I submit a proposal to the call of support to European cooperation projects of Creative Europe and my project gets funded, I will sign a grant agreement with the executive agency for culture, education, and audiovisual, which is a delegated agency of the European Commission. So I will have a direct contractual relationship with a representative of the European Commission. As a consequence, also the transfer of the money will be direct from the EC to the beneficiary without further intermediaries like the ministries, for example. In the same way, the selection, awarding, control, and audit procedures are managed by the European Commission in the case of direct funds. So the call for proposals here are the same for the whole European territory. The Creative Europe call for proposals will be the same for Italy, for France, for any of the member states of the European Union and other states participating in this program. So the competitive selection process is just one for the whole territory. And the proposals will be evaluated by experts of the European Commission. And if my project is granted, I will be communicating with a project officer of the European Commission directly or of the executive agency that represents the European Commission. Another characteristic of direct funds is the aspect of co-financing and pre-financing, meaning that each program provides a different co-funding rate. So the European Commission covers a percentage of the total cost of my project. It depends on the program. Usually it is from 50% to 80 or 90%, with some exceptions, like for example, Horizon 2020 covers 100% of the total cost in some cases. And this means that my organization has to be ready to cover the remaining percentage of the expenses through, for example, the work of my staff. And then the pre-financing means that out of the total of my of the European grant that I am expected to receive, the European Commission will give me in advance a percentage of this grant in order to allow me to kickstart my activities, my project, without anticipating money. This pre-financing is again variable, and it may be also lowered in case the European Commission considers my organization weak from a financial point of view. They may ask to my organization to accept a lower pre-financing at the beginning of the project, and then break down the rest of the payment into several interim reports and interim payments. Another crucial characteristic of direct funds is that the activities of the projects funded by this kind of programs must be transnational. They must have a European added value. This means that the activities of my projects must foresee a cooperation, a joint work among several organizations from different European countries, working together to achieve the results of the project. And these results should have an impact not only on my local territory, but at a European level. And with this, goes the partnership element. When I apply for a European fund under direct funds, I must be careful in selecting my partnerships and build it according to the criteria set out in the call for proposals. Here we go to three very much important keywords. We're going to see what is a funding program, even if it may sound obvious. A funding program, so it's a financial intervention put in place by European institutions and implemented through a multi-annual financial framework to support EU policies, and it includes the amounts allocated and the legal basis on which it is established. So the funding program is the tool that draws the money from the overall European budget to specific sectors and to contribute to specific objectives of European policies. And how the money is allocated, it is allocated through calls for proposals, which are official documents inviting to participate to a competitive selection in order to assign the grants in the framework of that specific program. And finally, we have the project, which is a complex action aimed at producing specific results through activities that require the use of resources and that must be spent within a limited time, a limited duration. The duration of the project is another element which is also always set out in the call for proposals. The grant cannot be spent for activities carried out before or after, but they must be spent exactly within the start and the ending date of the project. So the relationship between these keywords is this. We go from the funding program to the call for proposals, and we can somehow foresee the publishing of call for proposals by looking for annual work programs. So the funding program publishes at the end of the year, usually, an annual work program, which lists all the call for proposals that are planned for the upcoming year with the related budget and the related indicative timing. So this allows us to plan, to make a strategic planning, to see if we're able to apply to a specific call that we are interested in. It lets us to get prepared in advance. And the arrow that goes from the project to the call means that, and not the opposite, means that the project always has to adapt to the call for proposals and not the opposite. So when I have a project idea, I must absolutely first read carefully the call for proposals to see if my idea actually matches the objectives and matches the criteria. Otherwise, I must adapt it. Going into more practical terms, I would like to show you briefly some very useful links that are useful to see where to find these famous calls for proposals. The first one is the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. This portal is crucial because it is becoming gradually the most important point of reference for all the directly managed funds. It was born as the portal for Horizon 2020, but in the last years it has been developed and transformed, and gradually it is incorporating all the call for proposals of all the programs. It is still a process undergoing, but this is where we're going. Can you see my screen? Yes. So this is the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. And as I said, this is the entry point for participants and experts in funding of programs and tenders managed by the European Commission. So we're speaking about direct funds. And here you have the overview of European programs directly managed. So you have the Health Program, Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund, Creative Europe, you have Erasmus Plus, you have COSME. How do you find a call? For example, you can, if you already know which program you are interested in, you click on a program, for example, Justice, and you just look for proposals. And here you have the list of the calls. You can select if you want to only display the forthcoming and open calls, or if you also are interested in the closed ones, you can tick on closed, and you will see that there is no open nor forthcoming call for proposals under the Justice program. And then you can also switch to other programs. Here you have the list, or you can just type a keyword and just see what are the results. You see that there are no open calls anymore. So this is the Funding and Tender Opportunities. The other one is EACEA, the executive agency that I mentioned before, Executive Agency for Education, Audiovisual and Culture, which manages Creative Europe program. So for example, if I'm interested in knowing which calls for proposals are open in Creative Europe, I go here, and then I have an overview of the program. I can learn more about each action, and then I go to funding. And in this page, again, I'm able to display all the calls for proposals under Creative Europe, both open and closed. I can select which type of action I'm interested in. And for example, here I have the latest call for support to European cooperation projects. So I can go here, even if it's closed. But if it was open, it was the same. I just click on it, and I find everything that I'm interested. I want to know. I have the call notice. I have the guidelines, and then I have all the annexes to my application form. So I have to download and read all these documents in order to understand exactly what the European Commission is asking for. I forgot to say that also here, if, for example, you select a call, okay, sorry. For example, okay, I go on this call. So here I have the title, the deadline. I have a brief topic description, and then I have the call document here. So do not rely only on the brief information that this page gives you, because you have to refer to the call document and the guide for applicants. And then you also find the standard proposal template, which is very useful if you want to know in advance how the application form is structured and you want to start to work on it in advance. So this is to show you how they work. And here are, oh, sorry. Here is another link to, I don't know why it does not work. Sorry. If you go on the website of the European Commission, you go down, you can browse by topic. You find a list of all topics. And for example, if you are interested to know if there is something open under digital economy and society, you always find somewhere a funding section. And under this funding section, you see the open calls and the closed calls. The last link is Europa Facile. It's only in Italian, but we suggested it's kind of updated and it works well. So yeah, after showing you how the funding and tender portals function, I would like to invite you to make this small exercise because we want to the objective of this exercise is to let you analyze and see more in detail how a call for proposal is structured, because you will see that the information that we need are very much spread on long documents. But if we are interested in applying for a grant, we must be able to identify the key information that we need to structure our project. So if you wish to do it, I would give you 5 minutes to look for this call of the COSME program. The title is Tourism Synergies with Cultural and Creative Industries. It is a closed call, but I chose it because it has a very standard structure and it is not difficult to find. And then you can take 10 minutes to download the call text from the page and extract this information. Objectives, activities, deadline, total budget, EU contribution per budget, eligible applicants, and partnership. These are basically the information that we absolutely need to start and plan a project. You can simply note down the pages of the call where you find this information. So if you have some remarks or questions, I'm not able to. If there are no problems, we can take these 15 minutes to do this, and then we can come back to speak about it.
Yes, thank you, Alessia. I just copied the links you've given from the presentation, the chat. I just want to tell this to all participants, and just write on the chat if you have any problems with this small big exercise proposed by Alessia. So now it's like 5:15. We will be back in 10, 15 minutes. Let's say 5:30, but we are available for questions during the exercise.
Yeah. Maybe, sorry. maybe we can start. Oh, sorry. So how was this exercise? First of all, how did you feel? Was it difficult? Was it complicated to find the call? Did you find any obstacle, any doubt, or it was easy? Maybe you can maybe write in the chat if you were able to do that, or if you were not. Anybody? Okay, so Samantha found the page. Nice. Did you manage to find the call text? Did you manage to find the information that were requested? Okay, so okay. So yeah, some of you have managed to find the call, some didn't. But yes, the purpose of this exercise was to see where the information is located in the call document. As I said before, but I want to stress it very much, is it's very important that when you identify an interesting call, you must collect all the documents of that call, not just the call text, but also the guide for applicants, for example. You have to read everything very carefully, and you must be able to extract the necessary information that we have listed in this exercise in order to assess the following elements. First of all, is the call timing feasible? If a call is very interesting, but the deadline is in 1 month, I will not probably be able to manage to submit any proposal. So maybe I must get informed on the timing of the next call. And then I have to assess if my organization is eligible, because if a call for proposal is targeted, for example, to public and non-profit entities, and I am a small or medium-sized enterprise, then I cannot, in any case, participate to that call, even if it's really interesting for me. And then I have to assess if my idea is coherent or not with the call, as we said before. If it is coherent, it's good, but I probably have to adapt it further to the call. And then I have to see what are the financial conditions. So how much is the co-funding rate? Is my organization able to sustain the co-funding, the remaining co-funding necessary to cover the expenses of the project? So these are extremely important information that are scattered around long documents, but I must be able to find them. And this is usually what we do. Whenever a call is published, we immediately go through it and we make like a grid, a table, a scheme to summarize all this information and have the complete overview of that, of the criteria of that call. So just if you wanted to see, if some of you did not manage to find it, this was the call for proposal. And you have the table of contents, so maybe you can just go and click, you will find the objectives of the call, then you find the priorities, the eligible activities, because you have to keep in mind that you cannot decide to do whatever, but you must, your activities must be compatible to these, to the ones listed here. And then you have a timetable, so the deadline is very important, and you have all the financial information.
Alessia,
yes?
we can see your screen.
Ah, sorry.
So, yeah.
Why? Non so perché. I don't know why. Can you see it now? Okay, sorry. Yeah, this was the call. So yeah, here you have the objectives. And then you have the priorities, as I said, the eligible activities. And then you can just go through this shortcut to see the deadline. Yeah, and here you find the total budget allocated for this call, the maximum grant per project, the expected number of funded proposals, so you know that it will be a very competitive race, because you know that only 5 to 7 proposals will be funded, and this is the co-funding rate, maximum 75 of the eligible costs. And then you have the eligibility criteria. This is very important. So eligible applicants, you see only public or private bodies, and the private bodies must be properly constituted. Okay, so here there are all the criteria to be respected. You have a list of the eligible organization more in detail. You have the geographical area covered by the COSME program. And then you have the eligible consortia. So you know that you must involve at least 6 and maximum 8 partners from different countries, from at least 5 eligible countries. And you have also further criteria, so at least 4 SMEs, etc., etc. This is just to give you an idea. So, and then you have also pages and pages of document, but everything is actually important. So if you really decide to apply, you must read everything. Okay. So let's go back to our presentation. Now we're moving to the second part of the webinar, where I'm going to introduce you to several opportunities for culture and creativity across several European funding programs. I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to focus so much on Creative Europe and also on Erasmus Plus, because I guess you will see them later in the next webinars, but I'm going to spend a few words on them. So Creative Europe, you surely know, it is the European Program for Culture, Creativity and the Audiovisual, and it is divided into 2 sub-programs. Culture, sorry, culture is dedicated to all culture and creativity sectors except for the audiovisual, which is reserved to the media sub-program. So the media sub-program is addressed to the audiovisual in particular, And then we have a cross-sectoral strand, which is important because it includes very important tools that we're going to see later. The objectives, of course, are to support the capacity of the culture and creative sectors to operate at a transnational level, promote the transnational circulation of European works, the co-creation and co-development of new European works by letting the culture and creative organizations to cooperate together, and also enhance the mobility of artists and operators in order to improve their career opportunities and their competencies. And a very important objective is the development of new audiences, reaching also underrepresented groups that usually do not have so much access to culture, and also deepen the relation with the audience by starting to conceive the audience not only as a passive element but as an active participant either in the production and in the fruition of culture and creativity. And then another objective is to strengthen the financial capacity of enterprises and organizations and foster the innovation and new business management models in order to adapt to digitization and to the new social and economic challenges in our societies. Very quickly, any organization active in the cultural and creative sectors can apply, provided that these organizations have activities based on cultural values or artistic or other creative expressions. You have a list of the sectors involved, which are very several, and the eligible countries. The indication of partial participation means that Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, Tunisia, Armenia, and Kosovo participate only in a part of the program. The culture subprogram supports not only cooperation projects, which are the most well-known, but also other actions like European networks and platforms and literary translation. I'm going to spend just a few words on cooperation projects because they are kind of important. The call for proposals for cooperation projects is annual. So until 2020, it was published in late summer, autumn, and the deadline was usually towards the end of the year. Now we're waiting for the new Creative Europe program to be officially launched, as I said at the beginning, in order to see the new calls published. The eligible projects are two types. Smaller scale projects involve at least 3 partners from 3 different countries, and they can receive maximum 200,000 euros for a co-funding rate of 50%. While large-scale projects involve at least 6 partners from 6 different countries, and they can receive up to 2 million euros with a co-funding of 60%. The media sub-program, as I said, is focusing on audiovisual under a lot of perspectives. You have a list of the calls of the sectors covered by the calls. I'm not going to describe all of them, but I'm sure you will see them in detail later in the other webinars. And then the cross-sectoral strand includes this guarantee facility. The guarantee facility for cultural and creative sectors is a mechanism that incentivizes financial intermediaries to invest in culture and creative sectors by lowering the risk of this investment, so that cultural and creative companies can receive, can strengthen their financial capacity and benefit from further investment. It is operated by the European Investment Fund, and practically speaking, a small or medium-sized enterprise must contact the financial intermediary of its own country to benefit from this guarantee facility. So since 2016, when the guarantee facility was launched, 10 financial intermediaries have signed a participation agreement. In Italy, it is Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. And at the bottom of this slide, you find a link with the list of all the financial intermediaries. The cross-sectoral strand also has launched calls for proposals which are, let's say, experimental, or they address challenges or needs that have emerged in the last years in the European Union. For example, 2016, when there was the migration crisis, the support to refugees integration call was launched. Another example is the Master in Arts and Sciences. So you see how different the topics can be. This call was to explore the possibility of developing innovative modules for master degrees, which combined arts, ICT, entrepreneurship, and business skills. So to increase the capacities, the competencies of students to work in domains across arts, culture, science, and technology. And in the last 2 years, also this year, the call Bridging Culture and Audiovisual Content Through Digital was launched, which supported new forms of creation at the crossroads between different cultural and creative sectors, including audiovisual and innovative technologies like the virtual reality. So each project had to include at least one audiovisual and new digital technology aspect, and had to address one of the following areas indicated in the call: publishing, museums, performing arts, or cultural heritage. These are all closed calls for proposals, but I'm presenting them because, as I said, we are at the end of the programming period, but this gives you an idea of what the European Commission supports and is going to support in the future, because all these experimental calls were aimed at exploring new directions of support for the next funding programs. Erasmus Plus is another very big program, articulated into several actions. We are going to talk briefly about Key Action 2, cooperation for innovation and exchange of good practices. Erasmus Plus is, of course, a European program for education, training, youth, and sport, where culture and creativity surely find a big place as well. Key action 2 is divided into 3 types of actions. Again, we're just talking about the strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships are projects aimed at developing or transferring or implementing innovative practices to innovate education, training, or youth work or sport. And they can be of 2 types. Strategic partnerships for innovation are those projects that actually produce innovative outputs, the so-called intellectual outputs. Whilst you can also choose to submit a strategic partnership for exchange of good practices, which is only about sharing and exchanging practices and methods and develop networks. The beneficiaries are extremely varied. Any type of organization active in the field of education, training, youth, or other socioeconomic sector can apply. And as you see in a non-exhaustive list of possible applicants, also cultural organizations are mentioned. And these are the program countries involved. Strategic partnerships have addressed several sectors. So if you decide to apply to submit a proposal for a strategic partnership, you must first of all identify the sector that you're going to address. You must identify the target of your project. If it is school education or higher education or vocational education and training, adult education or youth. According to the sector that you choose, you will have to address one horizontal priority, which are the same for all the sectors, and at least one sector-specific priority, which are all listed in the guide, in the Erasmus Plus guide. Just to give you an idea, these are horizontal priorities, and you see that critical thinking and creativity, cooperation in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, the so-called STEAM subjects, and also social and educational value of European cultural heritage. These are all aspects that are welcomed in an Erasmus Plus project. These are the basic characteristics, and you know that up to 450,000 euro for your project can receive up to this amount for a duration of 36 months. And a peculiarity of Erasmus Plus projects is that they are operated by national agencies. So you are not actually applying to the European Commission directly, but you're applying to your national agency. In Italy, for example, there are 3 national agencies for Erasmus Plus: Indire, Agenzia Nazionale Giovani, and INAP, depending on which sector your partnership is. And these are the indicative timing of the call for proposals. Usually the calls were published each autumn with a deadline in March for higher education, VET, school and adult education, and 3 deadlines for the field of youth. Again, here we are waiting for the new Erasmus Plus program to know more about the next calls. There is just one remark, an important remark, that exceptionally this year an extra call has been launched in response to the COVID-19 situation. The deadline is the next 29th of October, and I am presenting it to you because also partnerships for creativity are foreseen. So partnerships with the aim to foster cooperation between different kinds of stakeholders with a focus on creativity, on European citizenship and cultural awareness of all citizens from youth to adult people. And also these are projects that should provide tools and competencies to become, for these people to become innovators. So to seize the opportunity of this crisis to develop innovative solutions, develop new ideas, and try to make a change in their communities through creativity. Switching to pilot projects and preparatory actions, I have to introduce this concept to you. The pilot projects and preparatory actions are actually very diversified calls for proposals, which address unexplored ways to support organizations across Europe. And they are used, they were launched in the last years by the European Commission to explore the ground in order to shape the next European programs. To give you an example, the initiative Music Moves Europe, boosting European music diversity and talent. This was a strategic initiative that was launched in order to explore the support, a targeted support to the music sector, which will be actually introduced in the next Creative Europe program. So we know that most probably the next Creative Europe will include a part of budget, a part of measures specifically targeted to music. So in the past years, Music Moves Europe opened this course targeting training scheme for young professionals, for young music professionals, online and offline distribution, cooperation of small music venues, music education and learning, and these were all ways to test, to pilot projects that could develop training schemes or support schemes. And building on the results of these projects, the European Commission has shaped the future program. This is the last call that was published, and it's still open, and it is aimed at, it will fund just one support scheme with the aim of contributing to a green, digital, just and resilient recovery of the music ecosystem. So it is a call that will fund projects. It will fund one support scheme that will redistribute the funds in order, in the form of grants to final recipients, in order to lower the impact, the environmental impact of the music sector, in order to enable the adoption of digital technologies, and so on. This is another kind of popular call for proposals. Cinemas as innovation hubs for local communities, which was launched this year. It was aimed at rethinking the cinema experience after the COVID-19 pandemic crisis in order to create innovative hubs around cinemas, around cinema operators, and strengthen the role of cinemas and rethink the role of cinemas in the local communities in the light of the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. I have added this remark, DG Connect, because this call is actually launched by the Directorate General Connect. So if you remember when I was showing to you the function browse by topic on the European Commission website, I went on digital economy, on the topic digital economy, and it was not by chance, but because there you will find also this call, and also this one, arts and the digital, unleashing creativity for European water management. You see, these are experimental calls. This one is aimed at funding one pilot project to establish collaboration at the nexus of art, digital, and water. So it's kind of unusual, but it gives you an idea of where the European Commission is aiming to go. So, which are the new topics, the new interests, the new directions of financial support from the European Union in the next years. And then we have a series of projects. Opportunità, probably most of you know it. Opportunità is a project co-funded by the Creative Europe program, which supported the short-term mobility of artists and cultural professionals through three calls for applications in 2019. These are the figures of the results. So 336 individuals benefited from transnational mobility in 41 countries. The Creative Flip project instead is a pilot project of the European Union, and it is more like a policy project. It supports healthy and sustainable ecosystems for cultural and creative industries in the key policy areas of finance, learning, innovation, and patenting. And it carries out more like an analysis study activity through surveys, analysis, conferences, etc. And it also launched the Creatives Unite platform. If you don't know it already, it is a platform which was created in response to the COVID crisis, and it collects all the solutions, the ideas, the initiatives, and the resources useful for the cultural and creative sectors that were created after in response to the coronavirus pandemic. So to help the sector to get together and to explore ways to face this new challenge. And then we have the Worth Partnership project, which was very interesting. It was co-funded by COSME, and it aimed to support collaboration among designers, small and medium businesses, manufacturers, and tech providers to develop innovative design-oriented business ideas. So a creative company could match with a partner in another country and benefit from an incubation program to develop an innovative product in one of the sectors below. So textile, clothing, footwear, leather and fur, home decoration, jewelry, etc. These projects are closed or are closing, but again, it is useful to know what the European Commission can support also in the future, because most probably these actions will be somehow repeated in the future, in the next programming period. And then we have the STARTS project, Science, Technology and Arts, funded by Age 2020, which supports, again, the collaboration and co-creation between artists, scientists, engineers and researchers to develop creative, inclusive and sustainable technologies and raise awareness on global challenges. And it opened lots of opportunities like residencies, prizes, academies for young people, and so on. Now we will have a look at the opportunities for culture in other programs, starting from COSME. You have already seen it in the exercise that we made. COSME is the European program for the competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises. So it's not focused on culture and creativity, but from time to time it has published calls also directed to the cultural sector, often paired with the tourism sector. So, for example, this call that we made, that we met during our exercise, was called Tourism Synergies with Cultural and Creative Industries, and supported projects for transnational cooperation between tourism and cultural and creative industries to promote and develop innovative and tangible tourism offers. So you may want in the future, in the next programming period, you may want to monitor the COSME program, which also will be called in a different way. We will see it later. You may want to monitor the new opportunities under this program because probably you will find similar ones. Horizon 2020, the program for research and innovation. On the left, you have the structure of the current program. You just want to know that under societal challenges, there is a societal challenge called Inclusive, Innovative and Reflective Societies that will be reflected in the new program, Horizon Europe, which will start next year. It will be reflected under Pillar 2. Instead of societal challenges, you will find clusters, but they are the same. You will find the cluster Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society. And usually, during Horizon 2020, there were many calls for proposals related to culture and cultural heritage, especially in relation to the promotion of cohesion and mutual understanding of European values and integration. In the next Horizon Europe program, under Pillar 3 instead, you will find the so-called European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Why am I talking to you about this? Because the European Institute of Innovation and Technology is the tool that will boost innovation ecosystems in Europe, and it is built on the knowledge triangle. So it supports complex partnerships that gather research in education and businesses together. These partnerships are called Knowledge and Innovation Communities, KICs, and they face ambitious global challenges. So they sustain training of young entrepreneurs, development and acceleration of innovative products and services, and support to innovative startups and scale-ups. And starting from 2022, the EIT will launch a new community on cultural and creative industries. So it is good to know in order to see what type of opportunities this will give to this kind of industries. And finally, we have Urban Innovative Actions. Urban Innovative Action is a program that enables cities to test, to pilot risky and extremely innovative, groundbreaking solutions to address urban challenges. So the eligible applicants are urban authorities or groups of urban authorities of more than 550,000 inhabitants, but it is required that the projects have a wide partnerships including public bodies, private sector, and civil society. So in this kind of partnerships, cultural and creative organizations can surely find a place to address urban challenges. And the next call is expected at the end of the next year. Now we will speak kind of briefly about European territorial cooperation. As I mentioned at the beginning, European territorial cooperation supports balanced and harmonious economic, social, and territorial development across the Union. What I would like to stress here is that the projects of European territorial cooperation are often targeted to public territorial authorities. However, other types of organizations can be direct beneficiaries, and this is the case, for example, of the same Chebec project. We will see it. So European territorial cooperation has 11 thematic objectives, and under these two, competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises and environment and resource efficiency, usually you find also opportunities for support to businesses, innovation, support to tourism, preservation and management of culture and cultural heritage. The European territorial cooperation can be of three types, as I said before. Cross-border cooperation includes 60 programs. There are 60 programs of cross-border cooperation in Europe. And this type of programs involve regions or provinces that share borders across member states. So depending on where you are located, the territory where you are located participates in different European territorial cooperation programs. And here you have the map of all the programs of this programming period. And then we have transnational cooperation. which involves instead bigger regions. It promotes better cooperation and regional development by a joint approach to tackle common issues. Among these programs, which are 15, we find the Interreg Mediterranean, which is the one that funded the Chebec project. So as you see, cultural and creative organizations can also be direct beneficiaries of funded projects, even if the program, even if they are not the main target of the program, they can be beneficiaries of the activities. And finally, we have interregional cooperation represented by the Interreg Europe program, which covers the whole European territory. And it builds networks to develop good practice and facilitate the exchange and transfer of experience by successful regions. Again, here the calls for proposals under all these programs that we have seen on the maps are most of all closed, and we are just waiting for the new European budget to be approved and for the new programs to be launched. And speaking about this, we will have a look at the next EU long-term budget. So this is the process up to now. In May 2018, the European Commission has made its own proposal of a new multi-annual financial framework for 2021-2027. And this proposal was of 1,279.4 billion euros. And then almost 2 years have passed with difficult negotiations within the member states until the COVID-19 crisis hit the European Union hard, and so it was necessary to revise the initial European Commission proposal. So a new proposal was made in May 2020, including in the next European budget also new measures to tackle the crisis. And in July, there was this important meeting in the Council of the European Union, and there was an agreement on the new revised multi-annual financial framework, which was lower than the initial one, much lower. And currently, we are in the process of again negotiating with the European Parliament, and hopefully by the end of the year, the new budget will be defined and officially approved. So for the time being, we know that that currently the next EU budget will be of 1,824.3 billion euros, but it combines the multi-annual financial framework, the normal one, so the regular European 7-year budget, with the Next Generation EU instrument. Next Generation EU, you surely know, will be the instrument that will provide for grants and loans for the recovery of the European member states. So yeah, it will support member states with investments and reforms, and will stimulate again the economy after the crisis and reinforce strategic action in health, civil protection, and external action. It is important to remark that 30% of the total budget will be dedicated to projects with a climate impact. In order to achieve the very ambitious, I must say, very ambitious climate target and environmental target of the European Union for the next 20, 30 years. Because according to the European Green Deal, by 2050, the European Union should become climate neutral. So this is why there is this big attention to budget to be spent on climate action. This is an overview of the future changes. We have the current programs on the left. So, for example, we have Creative Europe, the current budget, which is 1.4 billion, and it should become 1.64 billion euros. So it's not so much a big increase. The same goes for Erasmus Plus, which originally originally it was meant to double. But in the end, the proposal is much lower. And the same is for Horizon 2020. Initially, it was proposed to be raised to 94.4 billion euros. Instead, it was cut to 75.9 billion. The COSME program will become the Single Market and Competitiveness of Enterprises program. So if you will ever search for it in the future, you know that it will change name. And also these three programs, Justice, REC, Rights, Equality and Citizenship, and Europe for Citizens, will be merged into just one, Justice, Rights and Values. Okay, we go towards the end of the webinar. I'm going to give you a few tips on how to approach European funding opportunities. Also summarizing what we said at the beginning. So whenever you decide to design a project, you must start from a needs analysis, basing on your own context, on the interests of your organizations, on the area of intervention that you want to address. You must make a careful needs analysis, and based on that, you will get to an idea, a draft idea. Once you have this idea, then you can start scouting suitable European opportunities. And finally, you probably will find a call for proposals which suits your idea, which can be interesting for you. And as we said at the beginning, then you have to collect and read carefully all the documents and verify the eligibility of your idea. The arrow that goes from idea to calls for proposals is mutual, in the sense that, as we said, your idea must be ready to be adapted to the call. And finally, you can design your own project. The project needs to adapt to the call and not the opposite. And also, you should not, your project must be moved by a motivation to create an impact, to solve problems or to address challenges and problems, and must respond to your own visions, it does not, it must not be moved by only financial purposes. So you just do not make a project because you want to get money. There are two ways if you want to participate in European calls for proposals. The first one is to, of course, apply as a coordinator, but especially if you are at your first experience as an organization, you may want to join as a partner in a project which is promoted by another organization. So you keep in mind this double opportunity. So to join as a partner, you can look for projects that may interest you. There are Facebook groups, there are LinkedIn groups. There are also partner search platforms, for example, under Creative Europe or under Creative Europe. And also there are databases of funded projects that I have linked here. These are very important databases because they provide you with the whole list of funded projects. So you can get information about possible activities, possible ideas, you can get inspiration. You can also see which type of entities participate usually in those projects. You can also get contacts of possible partners in these databases. So it's very useful if you just go on the database of Creative Europe, you search for the type of project that you're looking for, and then you just surf through them. And this is a very final tip. If you are willing to launch yourself in the European funding opportunities world, you may want to prepare a small dossier regarding your organization, because you can be sure that all of these documents that I have listed will be either requested or useful. So, for example, you can prepare the statutes of your organization, a presentation of your organization with your activities, your objectives, your visions, your interests in joining possible European projects, the CVs, a list of previous European projects if you have already done this experience, an activity report, and of course the financial documents. I think I am done. I have said what I had to say.
Thank you, Alessia. Really, thanks.
You're welcome. I have to. I'm not able to.
So I think I guess we have a question to be answered. And
yes.
If other participants have questions, just post it on the chat or better on Q&A section, but we can read it anyway.
So I see a question here. What about changes of territorial cooperation? Do you have information? Actually, there are no official informations yet. So yeah, as I said before, we must wait for the final provisions, for the final decision around the European next budget. I think that within autumn, more information will be published on exactly how the programs will be structured, also under the territorial cooperation programs. Any other questions?
In the meanwhile, we remind you next webinar is always on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 4:30, and it's about project design basis. Some bits of theory about the project cycle management and other perspectives on project design, EU project design, of course. The whole webinar will be available. This webinar will be available on YouTube. We will send you the link. So, technical information, waiting for your further questions.
I had a question, if I can ask, or maybe I think could be interesting for some of our partners who will apply for the first time. So how much does it count to have a previous experience in European funds? And if, according to Alessia, it is better to apply being partner first than to be directly the organization apply?
Thank you for your question. It is a good question, actually. Of course, as a first experience, being coordinator of a project is always a sort of a big challenge, especially if you do not have an external support from people who are already experienced in this. If you have to rely only on your own internal resources, then it may be very challenging to be coordinator of a project for the first time. So it's always recommended, if you have the chance, of course, to be partner first, so that you get an idea of how it works, of how the management and the coordination of partners, the management of the grants and the administrative procedures, you get an idea of how they work by following your coordinator, and then you're ready to be coordinator yourself. But of course, there are cases. Also, we have worked with organizations that were coordinators for the first time, and also for big projects with 10 partners. And they were extremely successful. You must be careful in assessing your own resources, your own capacities, your own skills, and see if you need an external support for that or not. Any other questions? No. Okay. I don't know, Rosanna, shall we close? Shall we?
Yeah, I think we're done with this webinar. If anybody has no question, we can close the webinar, and yeah. Alessia gave you her email address, so, and you have our contacts, so if you need further information after you see again the presentation, just ask us. Thank you to participate in this webinar, and you will receive the link to register to the further part, to the second part of the webinars about in-depth webinar on specific programs and other meetings with cultural and creative organizations who had experience on different EU programs or with different EU instruments. So see you next Wednesday, and have a nice dinner, I guess.
Thank you very much again for everyone, to everyone.